top story this hour. Ethiopia commemorates Martyrs' Day with assaulted events. And Ethiopian cargo transports over 95 million stems of flowers for Valentine's season. A very warm welcome to Addis News. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. President Sahle-Work Zewde discussed with Finnish Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Union envoy Pekka Haavisto Thursday. It is to be recalled that on February 10, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen had discussion with Pekka Haavisto on the current situation in Ethiopia, including the humanitarian operation in Tigray. In another development, President Sahle-Work bade farewell to the outgoing Israeli ambassador to Ethiopia, Rafael Marov, on Thursday. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia had condemned in the strongest possible terms the escalation and provocative behavior of the government of the Sudan regarding the boundary issue between the two nations. In a statement issued yesterday, the ministry said Ethiopia believes that any conflict between the two countries would only result in a colossal collateral damage and jeopardizes the well-being of the two nations. Daniel Kassan presents the full statement.
Affairs of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia condemns in the strongest possible terms the escalation and provocative behavior of the government of the Sudan regarding the boundary issue between the two nations. Ethiopia believes that any conflict between the two countries would only result in a colossal collateral damage and jeopardizes the well-being of the two nations. Therefore, the Ethiopian government strongly believes that the conflict between, prompted by the Sudanese government's military wing, could only serve the interest of a third party at the expense of the Sudanese people. It is to be noted that the two governments have sufficient mechanism to deal with any claims and counterclaims of the border or any territorial claims. However, the Sudanese National Army violated the basic principles of international law and peaceful settlements of disputes by unceremoniously invading Ethiopia in early November 2020. In doing so, Sudan has violated the bilateral boundary agreements which stipulated non-displacement of nationals of either nation from their farms jointly registered by the two governments, the status quo of which shall be maintained until the disposition of the case by an agreement. The Sudanese side has also overturned and undermined the efforts of the Joint Boundary Committee that have been making tireless efforts to finalize the redemarcation process of the common boundary. Contrary to the spirit of friendship and cooperation existing between the two brotherly countries, the Sudanese army looted properties, buried camps, attacked and displaced thousands of Ethiopians, and controlled vacated Ethiopian military camps. What's more deplorable is in an apparent misrepresentation of the facts on the ground, Sudan is deliberately engaged in misinformation campaigns against Ethiopia by accusing the victim as an aggressor, evading accountability by shifting blame and camouflaging its belligerence, and continue its provocation in an attempt to control more lands. Amidst of all this escalatory and provocative behavior of the Sudan, Ethiopia has shown a great deal of patience, remained restrained from exercising its legitimate right of self-defense, and time and again expressed its commitment to a peaceful settlement of differences regarding the boundaries through existing bilateral agreements and joint border mechanisms. What's needed is a political will of the two governments which would enable them to reach at an amicable solution. Ethiopia firmly believes in a long-standing fraternal relations between the people of Ethiopia and Sudan, regardless of the nature of their respective governments. The attempt being made by the Sudanese army to put the friendly peoples of Ethiopia and Sudan to an unwarranted war is a serious blunder that will undermine their peace, stability and development of the two nations, in particular and the region in general. Ethiopia, while reiterating its commitment for a peaceful settlement of boundary issue, once again calls upon the government of the Sudan to reverse the aggression, desist from provocation, and resort to a peaceful settlement of the boundary issue. Therefore, the Ethiopian government would like to call upon the people of the Sudan to check on its government from serving a third-party interest, which only would result in the deterrent of the two nations. Furthermore, Ethiopia calls upon brotherly African countries to advise the Sudanese government to finalize the border issues through available mechanisms in peaceful manner. The government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia also thanks the people of Ethiopia for showing maximum patience and profound understanding.
Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister of Ethiopia, Demeqa Mekonnen, has today discussed with Minister of External Affairs of India, Subrahmanyam Jaishankar, on ways of deepening strategic partnerships between their respective countries. Deputy Prime Minister Demeqa Mekonnen tweeted that he had fruitful discussion with his Indian counterpart on how to scale up bilateral relations to a strategic partnership and cooperation in multilateral forms. The two have inked essential agreements to further cement relation and multifaceted cooperation between Ethiopia and India. Ethiopia and South Sudan have signed a military cooperation agreement. The agreement was signed here today by Army Chief of Staff of the Ethiopian National Defense Force, General Birhanu Jula, and his South Sudanese counterpart, General Johnson Juma. The agreement includes exchange of information on military security, curbing illicit arms and human trafficking at border areas, strengthening military diplomacy, and cooperation in areas of education and training. A delegation led by Army Chief of Staff of South Sudan, General Johnson Juma, arrived in Addis Ababa yesterday for an official working visit. The first annual Parliamentary Research Conference, set for 2 days, has kicked off by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa early today. The conference aims at providing a platform for parliamentary research services to share best practices, information, and knowledge, as well as to build the capacity of its members. Habtam Ashagri has more.
The first Parliamentary Annual Research Conference has kicked off early on Friday in Addis Ababa with the aim to establish partnerships with researchers for sharing best practices, information and knowledge. Hosted by the House of People's Representative, the conference Get Started is under the theme Parliament Democracy, Good Governance and Human Rights. In his opening remarks, Speaker of the House of People's Representatives Tagashe Chafo said a strong parliamentary research support can play a crucial role in improving legislative decision-making and strengthening democracy.
This research conference is expected to increase social, economic and political capacity of HCPR members. HCPR members have been playing significant role by solidifying their alignment with civic societies as well as democratic institutions. Thus, scientific research is critical to provide appropriate solutions. This concern is vital to realize the hope of the nation at large. A debate based on scientific research is also important. Further activities are needed to realize research-based scientific works in a bid to regulate major activities in the executive branch.
Reliable factors and analysis contribute to better understanding of problems, provide more realistic and effective legislative solutions to problems, and can envisage the impact of laws before they are adopted, he added. The conference would have a significant contribution for the ongoing institutional reform activities of the Parliament, besides allowing it to take decisions based on researches, particularly in drafting laws and monitoring activities.
We are exerting our efforts to pass decisions on basic concerns based on scientific research. Thus, we are alertly working along with excellence centers as well as other institutions. This activity is including the ongoing reform activities managed by the House. I hope this research conference will provide an immense role to capitalize major activities across the nation.
Moreover, it would help universities, research institutions, think tanks, civil society organizations, and professional associations to forge a strong network and engage problem-solving researchers, thereby contributing their share for national economic growth, he said. The two-day conference is organized jointly by the Secretariat of the House of People's Representatives of Ethiopia and the United Nations Development Programme.
The history of Martyrs' Day should be well documented and commemorated properly in order to make the new generation be aware of the sacrifices made by Ethiopian patriots and understand the history, an Ethiopian historian said. Residents of Addis Ababa, along with government officials and representatives of the Ethiopian Patriots Association, commemorated the 84th anniversary of the Yekatit Asraulet massacre in the capital Addis at the vicinity of Sidiskilo Martyrs Monument. The day is a memorial of more than 30,000 Ethiopians who were massacred by fascist Italian troops in 1937. Gush Melissa presents the stories followed.
The Martyrs' Day is marked every year on February 19 to remember over 30,000 Ethiopians who were massacred by fascist Italian troops within 3 days. Doros massacre in Ethiopian history was by the Italian forces embarked on following an attempted assassination by Ethiopian patriots Abraha Deboch and Moges Asgedom against Marshal Rudolf Graziani, who had led the Italian forces in the second Italian invasion of Ethiopia and was supreme governor of Italian East Africa. With the presence of Deputy Mayor of Addis Ababa City Administration Adanesh Abebe, members of the Ethiopian Patriots Association and residents of Addis Ababa City, the 84th Ethiopian Martyrs' Day has commemorated through laying wreaths at the Yekatit Asraulet monument to honor sacrifice of those Ethiopian patriots for their country's sovereignty. Talking to ETV, history researcher Ayele Bekari said the history of Yekatit Asraulet massacre should be well documented and properly commemorated.
Previously, Yekatit Asraulet Martyrs' Day was commemorated as a national day. The history of Martyrs' Day has to be well documented and remembered appropriately in order to make the new generation to be aware of about the sacrifices made by the ancient patriots and to understand the history properly. If the Martyrs' Day commemorated in schools, students will make it their topic, and it creates an opportunity to understand their history. Therefore, I recommended that Martyrs' Day should be celebrated as a national day like Adwa and others.
The objective of fascist Italy was not only colonizing Ethiopia, but also to demise Ethiopia, the historian added. When
Italy came to Ethiopia, its main objective was not only colonizing, rather it had also a plan to disintegrate Ethiopia. Their ultimate goal was to create Eastern African Italian nation. Therefore, in order to establish Eastern Italian nation, they had to divide Ethiopia into 6, namely Amhara, Tigray, Shawa, Addis Ababa, Somali, Oromia, and Sidama together to dismantle Ethiopia. They also demolished statues which are Ethiopian identity and Ethiopia's manifestation of social values. Italy had strived to make Ethiopia know history. Moreover, Italy made atrocities against the elders, children, others who had not had any involvement in the war. The massacred Martyrs may surpass 30,000 Ethiopians.
በጣም ኢምፖርታንት የሆኑትን የኛ መለያ እንትኖችን ሐውልቶችን ለምሳሌ አጼ ሚኒሊክን ሐውልት አነሱ።
The International Court of Justice or UN hadn't yet asked Italy for its atrocities against innocent Ethiopians, the historian noted.
Meanwhile, Addis Ababa residents have attended the commemoration of the 84th Ethiopian Martyrs' Day here in the capital Addis at the Yekatit Asrahulut Monument. They have also expressed their feelings about the day. Kasaun Jane compares their views as follows.
Today is a commemoration of the innocent, something unforgettable evil deed by the cruel fascist Graziani, who had distracted and killed many Ethiopians. Following this attempt, thousands of innocent Ethiopians were massacred and imprisoned at the hands of fascist soldiers. When at a time they controlled Addis Ababa, and during a time when those Italians were gathering the people and spoke out their propaganda, the two patriots, namely called Abraham Daboj and Moges Assagadom, with a united operation, had given the invaders a hard time. They had killed more than 30,000 Ethiopian civilians, and that remains fresh and alive in the collective memories of all Ethiopians. Yekatit Asrahulet is a time that recalls the two Ethiopian brothers and patriots who were angry with Graziani and threw bombs over the fascists. And I also joined the patriots since that time. So this day is a day where we various Ethiopians work in partnership to fight against the brutal reprisal taken by Graziani. Mobs of Ethiopians were able to drive out the invading force. This is an era where colonizers. It is an era where Ethiopia needs her children to sacrifice divisive interests for the sake of their country. This kind of holiday is needed to just remind us where we came yesterday. If we know where we came from yesterday, we can assure that where we are today. And if we assure today's situation, we can continue an assured and productive plan for tomorrow. This is why we united and present here to commemorate our fathers and forefathers' patriotic and heroic history with confidence. What the fathers were transmitted to us when we celebrate this monumentous victory, we should pay tribute to our patriots who defeated the invading Italian colonial forces. There are many lessons we can draw from this historic event, and there must be various ways that must be organized for the youth to know history, just like Guzo Adwa. Similarly, in various industries like film and so on, the youth should get aware of the Battle of Adwa and its outcome that highlight the critical importance of self-reliance, patriotism, and selflessness and unity through respecting political, ethnic, and other differences.
Ethiopians mark the 19th of March as Martyrs' Day, on which the Italian invaders massacred over 30,000 civilians. The three-day-long massacre gave rise to a large number of patriots across the country to fight for vanquishing the fascist army once and for all. Sintayo Tamra presents.
February 19 is remembered by Ethiopians around the world as Martyrs' Day in commemoration of one of the bloodiest days of the Italian occupation. On February 19, or Yekatit Asrahulet in the Ethiopian calendar in 1937, following an attack on the life of Viceroy Rodolfo Graziani, the city of Addis Ababa was swept by a wave of indiscriminate violence at the hands of fascist black shirts and Italian civilians. Brutal reprisals continued in the following months as Graziani took advantage of the attack to suppress all opposition to his rule in the new colony in East Africa. The Italian troops had been tirelessly trying to convince Ethiopians to be colonized by Italy. However, Ethiopians had shown invincible spirit at the Battle of Adwa that they would pay everything to their sovereignty. On this day 84 years ago, the Italian troops occupied Addis Ababa University. Abraham Daboj and Moges Assagadom, Ethiopian patriots, threw a bomb which wounded Graziani, the enemy army leader. It was for vengeance of this bomb attack that the Italian troops started massacring the residents of Addis, women, men and children. This monument, hence erected as a depiction of the massacre of the Ethiopian martyrs that refused colonialism and fell down to safeguard Ethiopia's sovereignty. The residents of Addis now say the monument has big meaning at the core of Ethiopianism.
ታሪኩ የሰማዕታት ሐውልት ነው። ይህ ሰማዕታት ሐውልትም የቆመበት ምክንያት
This monument was erected to pay tribute and remember those who gave their lives to our independence. During the 3 days massacre, between 30 to 36 civilians were brutally massacred by the fascist troops. Our fathers told us that some were burnt alive as they were in their huts. Others were killed by cutting with spade and hoe. Still others were killed with machine guns. This monument is here to remember our people were massacred to give us this country and leave us history the white invaders never forget. This is another historic event that unified us and will unify against any foreign enemy and national cause.
A country without a historical memory is like a person without a head. Over a century ago, the Ethiopian people and the national leadership united like one person to defeat the foreign power that eyed to take over Ethiopia. The victory of Adwa is a victory that united a nation, the people, and the leadership. Internally, all the varied groups from Oromia to Eritrea were mobilized and contributed richly to the success of the Adwa victory by all Ethiopians through the depth and breadth of the land. This was not a victory of the leaders or one ethnic group. This was a national victory with a wider African and indeed world significance. It was and remains an exemplary episode in demonstrating what a united people can achieve with the support of the African diaspora and the anti-colonial forces in the West.